Yeah, not smart. Anyway,
Welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone new to the space. So excited to have you all here. We are live streaming. Please go and tag us on our social medias. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn even. You can find us at NYRI _SA. All right. Just to go over the overview once again, today we will be going through the environmental group, social group A, and political group A's presentations. We will also have some guest speakers and ambassadors engaging in the space. We are very excited to host you guys here today. So please interact with us on the chat box, share your reactions, tell us how you're feeling today. Yeah, let us know. If you can, please just rename yourselves, your first name and the organization that you represent. And so just so that we can, we know who you are. All right. For our first segment, I would like to welcome Lungisile, Russ, and Palesa. They will be doing a little bit of an opening for us, and yeah, so let's give them the space.
Yeah, man. I election Babylon showcase. Whistle. Whistle. Nangu show. Oh, Nangu case. Oh, Nangu show. Oh, Nangu case. Show. Case. Show. Case. Show. Case. Show. Case. Efula masago sigeni. Eitona ngathi senkingeni. Bathanda ukukhuluma ngebeef, but never meet like a vegan. Le number ngikhumbuza Japan. Isigubhu ngiphendula uDeveli. I'm serving life behind these bars. Intwana ngathi iphume ejeli. Le ntwana ikhohlwa kumele uyikhumbuze. For isobho kumele ufukuze. For the paper kumele ukhuthuze. All the haters kumele agudluke. Amajita vela vumbuke. Keep impova vela dumbule. Ashophi plaka vela dusuke. Kodwa ikasi kumele likhuphuke. Mangingena bathi show. Mangingena bathi show. Oh, show. Okay. Show. Okay. Show. Okay. Show. Okay. Mangingena bathi show.
Leader Pali, you can take the floor.
greetings, leaders and fellow ambassadors and distinguished guests. I am Palesa N. Teramnyadua, chairperson of the Global Business Roundtable Future Leaders in the Free State. I'm an ambassador for the NYRI from Free State Espel. I'm an author, and I'm also part of the editing and writing team for the NYRI newsletter, and it's an honor to be in the space today. And today I wanted to bring you closer to understand that the most valuable component of leadership is not position, influence, or intellectual superiority. The most valuable component of leadership is character, and every leader is as secure as their character. And a better tomorrow begins with how we step today. And every day we are presented with the opportunity to create a better world for everyone. And building a resilient future begins with us. We need to conscientize ourselves and wake up to the reality that it is us for us, and nothing without us cannot happen. And as young people in this space, I would truly like to say a round of applause to you guys for heeding the call when we were called to become the change drivers, to become the voice of hope and the beacon of light. And a few days ago, I had a conversation with someone, and I said to them, a nation is made great by its people, and we are the people. And we need to take ownership of our own future. We need to be responsible for our own lives, and we need to reach out to other people and assist where we can assist in our different communities. And I want to urge you today, leaders, that we need to be accountable and we need to be responsible as we go out into our respective communities to birth a livable future for the next generation. And in closing, I would like to say, nothing without us, about us. Thank you so much, ambassadors. And I will be handing over to my co-facilitator, my co-presenter, Lungisile Kweyama.
Thank you, Balisa, and a warm greetings to everyone who's in the space on a beautiful Friday afternoon. It is an honor to be here and sharing the space with amazing change drivers. My name is Lungisile Kweyama, and I'm not gonna dive in much into my bio because today's engagement is about action. And as a nation, as people, we have suffered, and there's a collective loss we all share, more so in the past 20 months. As I take stock of my journey within the NYRI network, I am hit with one dominant feeling: hope. Hope that saw the establishment of this network, and hope that everyone in this space has made a silent pledge for a better tomorrow. A better tomorrow for me as a young Black woman in South Africa includes living in a safe, healthy, and enabling society where everyone can thrive and contribute meaningfully in the growth of our country. This important call to action dialogue could never have come at a better time as we move closer to 16 days of activism, starting from the 25th of November until the 10th of December. An international campaign that is grounded in curbing violence against women and children. And this year's theme is the year of Charlotte Manya Makleke, moving from awareness to accountability. My question is, who are we holding accountable? How do we even begin to hold them accountable? Is it not too late to hold anyone accountable with so many lives already lost? Have we not perhaps heard similar words used in the past with respect to gender-based violence? What is going to make 2021's theme any different? All these questions have been lingering in both my heart and mind, but I'm still hopeful. I have seen how the power of working towards a common cause can achieve great things, which is evident even today. Different stakeholders saw the need for a more resilient youth, and a group of 50 young, vibrant, and diverse individuals responded. It's that spirit our country needs now moving forward. In the year 2020, our president made the following statement: at a time when the pandemic has left us all feeling vulnerable and uncertain, violence is being unleashed on women and children with a brutality that defies comprehension. these are indeed powerful words that we can all resonate with. However, if they are not coupled with action, they remain just that, words. I would like to leave you with the following quote from the late Mr. Joachim Jacobs, who dedicated his entire life to youth development. It reads, "True change is impossible until the core of a man's being, the heart, has been affected." My hope for you for the 2 days that we're going to spend together is that you open your heart and your mind to everything that will be shared in this space. Thank you. And now head over to my fellow ambassador, Ras.
Greetings, everyone.
Russ.
Sorry, apologies everyone. I just had technical. Yeah, I am. Hello.
Good.
Am I muted?
No, Russ, you're on. We can hear you now.
Okay. So thank you for my two leaders that has opened the floor. I am going to read the synopsis. So basically, since our onboarding on the 14th of April 2021, the NYRI has been a network and a space which contributed to the development of SA civil society space. Ambassadors have managed to craft niche development issues that give answers to global and national issues around economic recovery, climate change, affordable housing, sustainable development. Ambassadors themselves have proven to be experts as development professionals in their given sectors and industries. Ambassadors have proven to be thought leaders that have the ideas to shape a more equal, peaceful, and united South Africa with an African outlook, inspired by the Agenda 26 framework and the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the call is for ambassadors to be empowered to implement the grassroots and boardroom activities to truly bring betterment for the have-nots, the poor, those that need jobs, those that need medicine, and those that need shelter, those that need love and understanding. And I can make a general statement. By closing policy gaps in the youth empowerment and community development spaces of our society, the continent, and the globe, the social, political, and opportunity costs will be reduced. As ambassadors, we understand we must ensure that resources, aid, donations, public sector subsidies, and philanthropy at large works better to make our unequal societies responsive to broad-based development of equality. That being said, the income gap will never be closed completely, but it can be decreased. The NYRI has developed the capacity of ambassadors to affect accountability, governance, manner, and implementation of development performance in civil society and civic public sector. As experienced on-the-ground activists, professionals, creatives, practitioners, functionaries, staffers, advisors, and young people in the development space and the youth engagement space at large. We have brainstormed and thereby formulated practical project methodology to bring about innovative solutions for our developmental issues. And that's within South Africa, Africa, and the globe. So we give thanks for the ideas, the skills, the learning, and the experience up until this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lungisile, Palesa, and Ras, for your wise words. We are now going to move into the first presentation by the environmental group. I would like to invite Dominique Naidu to present.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, guests. Can we make me a host, please, so I can share my screen?
Brian, can we just check? Did you hear?
Dominic
He is co-host now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can someone remind me how to share a screen again?
Dominic, if you go down to your bottom ribbon, in the center of your bottom ribbon, it's share screen.
Thank you. Gosh, it's right there.
Cool. Too
I had
much
a long
time at
morning.
COP26.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. It's coming through. We got it.
Cool. I'm not going to put my video on because my face is not much to look at anyway. The presentation is more important. Okay. Let's go. Thank you, guys. So thank you for being patient. I'm not always as technically ineffective. I think I'm a bit nervous, but we'll carry on. So good afternoon, team. Thank you to the organizers for putting this together for us. You guys have worked tirelessly over the past couple of weeks, and we know that. And we appreciate all that you've done and you're continuing to do. My team, we wanted to work on an issue that affects both people and the environment as a whole. So we chose waste. And as many of you would know, that we do have a huge waste issue in this country. Waste is an issue that it doesn't only affect the poor. So if you're a human being and you're living on this planet, you produce waste, and it will affect you somehow or the other. So, and it will always be here. Not like COVID is a big issue. It came and it's slowly going away, but waste will always be with us. So we need to figure out how to deal with our waste in a sustainable manner. So me and my team from all over the country, there's 6 of us. We put our minds together and we're trying to come up with a way to help communities and schools deal with the waste issue. Okay, I'm going to start with a video. I'm going to play a few seconds first, and you guys can let me know in the chat box if it's coming across clearly. Is that good? No sound. I'm getting sound from my side.
Hi. So for you to be able to play the sound, if you just take down the video, and when you're putting up the video, there's 2 buttons at the bottom where you need to say optimize sound and video. So you can pull it down at the moment, and then when you are sharing the video, you then have to click those 2 buttons.
Okay, can you go over that again for me? Optimize video clip.
Yes, video clip and sound. There's 2 buttons. Click both, and then it's going to play from.
Share sound. Okay, let's try. Is that better?
We need to just become very conscious of the fact that whatever we send to a landfill site is going to end up further polluting our environment, because we just don't have
Okay, thank you guys.
that space left.
A warning from the city of Johannesburg. The space to dispose of your waste is running out.
I'm standing here on almost 90 years of piled up waste. This area, Robinson Landfill Site, is the largest of its kind in the city of Johannesburg. The city says it only has about 6 years before it will run out of space to dump refuse.
From the 1st of July, residents of Johannesburg are compelled to separate their garbage from recyclable waste in their homes. The city will be providing bags once a week to every household. It's in these bags the council wants you to put any recyclable items. All residents are being urged to comply with the new recycling rule to avoid the consequences of Johannesburg's landfill sites reaching capacity in the near future.
If we don't have landfill space left, if you look at behind us, we've got a mountain of waste. Once upon a time, that was a flat piece of land. In 6 years' time, this landfill space will be encroaching on where we live. If we can't use this landfill space, we're going to have to find alternative ways. At this point in time, the only place that we can move to is Delmas. We found a landfill site there with some 100 years of landfill space left. But that means it's going to have a huge cost implication. There will be waste by rail, and that ultimately is going to be, that cost is going to become the burden of our residents.
Okay, guys, that was a waste issue in Johannesburg.
Reaching capacity.
Sorry.
We live. Almost, we've got full space left, but that means it's going to have a huge cost implication. There will be waste by rail, and that ultimately is going to that cost is going to become the burden of our residents.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm clicking the wrong thing and it's taking me somewhere else. So this is in Durban in 2019 after a bad storm. We just had a week of rain and this is what washed out into the ocean. And this is next to the Golden Mile on the Durban beachfront. So this is where all the tourists would come and visit. If you can see, there's just waves and waves of plastic bottles. And those are, I'd say 95% of that waste is 100% recyclable. And we're just throwing it in the ocean. And this is from Cape Town. It's another waste issue of food wastage.
We estimate that a third of food is dumped in South Africa every year. This has significant ecological impacts because all that food has compounded water and energy, and from a climate change perspective, in the landfill it emits harmful greenhouse gases, both methane and carbon dioxide.
Thank you.
We donate directly to charities that will come and collect. We also will have a variety. We've got meat, as I mentioned to you earlier. We do get meat sometimes as food donations.
That has given me great hope for the future, that we will no longer have the absurd situation of wasting a third of food and all the environmental and climate impacts that go along with that, and actually work together through the value chain to ensure that all edible food is eaten and ideally reaches those who need it most.
Okay. So this is our problem tree. And correct. You can see the stem is the unsustainable waste management practices in this country. Currently it's unsustainable. 50 years ago, nobody would have thought that we're going to have this issue with plastic, or we're going to have this issue with not having enough landfill space. And so right now it's considered highly unsustainable. So there's a lack of consistent recycling initiatives. I know in Durban, we have had issues with the recycling bags. We've had issues with recycling not being picked up. And when that happens, people don't bother anymore. In Johannesburg, it is a bit better, and Cape Town, it is a bit better, but we need more consistent waste management practices and recycling initiatives. With that goes with poor waste management education. So a lot of people, they are quite happy with just throwing their waste in the bin, putting it in your bin bag, leaving it out for bin day, and then it's gone. It's not your problem anymore. But the waste is still there. It doesn't disappear. So we need to educate on how we can recycle waste and how we can try and stop buying things that cannot be recycled. Can we get a show of hands? How many people knew that our chips packets cannot be recycled? Yeah, if you look in the back of any chips packets, it just has that little man with throwing a packet in the bin. Normally you'd find the type of plastic that's there, but most chips packets cannot be recycled. Currently, I've only seen maybe Frymax that can be recycled because it's made up a different type of packaging, but most chips packets, including Simba, knickknacks, our country's favorite, cannot be recycled, and it just ends up in landfills. Then we're looking at consumerism. Sorry, I'm going to take a bit longer because I see I started a bit earlier, so I'm not going to rush through it. Consumerism is a big issue, and I know it might be a debatable topic, because as our country progresses, as more countries around the world progress, and more people earn a bit more, and they're able to afford to buy more stuff. And now we're saying consumerism contributes to the waste issue. Now we're telling people, you can't buy too much. You need to watch what you're buying. So we have to look at consumerism and what do we need to buy the things that we currently buy. There's a lack of basic services. So in this country, especially, we do have a lack of service delivery, which leads to dumping. People are just throwing their bin bags into rivers and on the side of the roads, things like that. There is a lack of large-scale recycling infrastructure. So if you look at countries in Europe and the UK, they have government-subsidized huge buildings, recycling initiatives, where the cost is not necessarily the main point, because the government would subsidize the recycling initiatives. Here we don't have that, and that's one of the main points that we need. We need the government to put money into recycling, because right now it's just not feasible to recycle. You don't make enough money of it. And as a business, if I want to go into recycling, I need to feed my family. I need to pay my employees, and I'm going into a business so I can make a profit. And if if I'm going to recycling and there's no profit, I'm not gonna want to do this anymore. So that's why that also contributes to the recycling initiative, where there's no large-scale recycling infrastructure to process the amount that we need to process in order to be sustainable. Then we're going to look at what all this may lead to. So land pollution, that's more or less an obvious one. Water pollution, as we see with Durban, that's not only plastic pollution there. So you get chemical pollutions from oil and chemicals that are dumped. And when chemicals are dumped on land in dump sites, they would leach into the soil and they would eventually go into groundwater. Groundwater goes into wells, boreholes, rivers, and that water is used by people. It's used by farms. It's used to feed livestock, to wash people's food. So that would eventually, you think your chemicals are in a dump, it's safe, it's far from everyone, but somehow it's going to lead back to someone, and it's going to cause a damage somewhere. Then there's air pollution. When we dump things in a dump, especially organic waste, it ferments, it gets rotten, and it leads to air pollution, releasing methane. Methane is 20 times more efficient at retaining heat than carbon dioxide. So the more methane we have in the environment, the warmer our Earth gets, and the faster we head into climate change. Animal die-offs. So when chemicals go into the rivers and seas from our waste, we see huge die-offs of land animals and mostly marine animals as well. We see that recently in Durban with the UPL factory leaching chemicals into the river, and it closed the beaches down for a couple months because of that waste. So then that would also lead to food insecurity. The fishermen couldn't fish for a long time, so they had to find another source of income, another source of getting food. If chemicals pollute a farmer's water source, they would not be able to grow their crops. They would not be able to feed, to water their livestock, which would trickle down to us. That would lead to food insecurity with us. So waste is not only you throwing something in the bin and it goes to a dump and it's fine. It's not. We need to find a more sustainable way to deal with our problem. Okay, the current realities that my team discussed. So this, just note, this is not a blanket reality throughout the country. These are what we discussed as a team from where we are in KZN Northwest, and I think it's Limpopo and Mpumalanga. So there's a lack of sustainable waste management systems, a lack of sustainable, consistent recycling initiatives, increase in illegal dumping due to poor service delivery, increased air, land, and water pollution due to illegal dumping and burning, lack of education and accessible information regarding proper waste management practices. So that's a very important one. There's a lack of education and accessible information. So if I wanted to recycle, if I just decided I want to recycle, so it's not as easy to find a recycling drop-off point or what can I separate? How do I do this? What's valuable? What's not valuable? What's not recyclable? How do I differ between the different types of plastics? So you'd have to really do a deep dive. So we need a more accessible information regarding proper waste management. Then there's a lack of governmental food garden and composting initiatives. So in a lot of countries, you'd see, this is quite big now in the US, Japan, and Europe, in the UK, where people are obliged to separate the kitchen waste, your vegetable peelings, your tea bags, things like that. And it gets taken away every week into a community composting site, where they just leave it to compost, and then it's turned into rich black soil, which then can be used in community food gardens. And these food gardens are free and they feed the homeless, the less fortunate. And all that's coming from waste. So instead of just throwing this waste into your black bin and it going to the dump, it's contributing to food security for people. Okay. I know this is a bit of a text heavy. I'm not a huge fan, but I thought this was all very important. So the background to why we're doing this. Most waste management practices in South Africa are not coordinated and they're poorly funded. That could be for many reasons. I don't want to speculate that the government's not focusing on waste management, because we do have a lot of issues in our country. The key issues include inadequate waste collection services for a large portion of the population. Many people live in rural areas. They live in areas where there's no address, no formal address, no formal roads. So waste goes uncollected, and then just people start dumping it in a central location, which was not meant for dumping. Unlicensed waste management systems, including unpermitted disposal facilities. So we got a lot of this, disposal facilities that say they can take car oil, or they can take vegetable oil, or they can take different types of chemicals, but they can't. And then this leads to them disposing this in a bad manner, where it may damage the environment. Then we covered a lack of airspace in permitted landfills. I did a story a couple months back where I found out there's only 2 landfill sites in the country that are legally allowed to still accept waste. Just 2 in the entire country. This was a couple months ago, I'm not sure at the moment, but a couple months ago it was just 2. And the government knows this, but it takes a long time to develop a new landfill site. You don't just fence off a land and start dumping there. You have to prepare the ground. There's a lot of environmental impact assessments that take place over a long period of time. So you can't just start dumping in a certain area. So we don't have space for our waste anymore. It's just, and we keep producing more and more waste. Okay, there's insufficient waste management and recycling initiatives. We spoke about that. A lack of waste information, a lack of regulation and enforcement of legislation. So if someone sees someone dumping, we have this problem in KZN. I'm not sure if it's as big as it is here where you guys are from, but illegal dumping is an issue. And one of the reasons why is because there's a lack of enforcement of legislation. Obviously, it's not legal to just dump your waste on the side of the road. So if one person does this and people see that nothing's happening, then they'll go do it as well. And that's how we get these huge spaces where dumping occurs illegally. And the last one is limited waste related legislation. And that could be because we do, like I said, we have other much more pressing issues than to worry about waste. But if you think about it in the long term, waste is a really big issue that's going to affect us eventually. So our findings in the research, recycling reduces raw materials. That means we don't need to extract as much from the earth. We don't need to extract oil for plastic. We don't need to extract steel, iron ore. This will also cut down on refining, processing raw materials, which all create air and water pollution and uses energy. So just by recycling what we have, we can save so much of money. We can save so much of raw materials and reduce waste. We need to make our recycling, we need to make our waste valuable. We need to put a price on this waste, and the government needs to do that by subsidizing. So right now, I know I think in the beginning of the year, it was 50 cents per kilo of cardboard. That's what our waste pickers are getting. And I think it's about one rand, 150 for white paper, a kilo of it. So like if you put just a couple rand more of value on these things, more people will want to collect these just to earn some money to have something to eat for the day. And by them doing that, we'd have less waste going to landfills. The circular economy. Okay. Can I have a show of hands? Do we know what's, does anyone know what a circular economy is? Okay, a circular economy is, it's basically like a circle, you know, you produce something and nothing of that product goes to waste. It's a Coke can would fit perfectly into a circular economy. A Coke can is pure aluminum. It is 100% recyclable. From the time you drink, eat and recycle, you can get the exact same can back with a drink in it. So we need more products like cans and glass as well to make a circular economy. So producers need to produce packaging and products that are more suitable in a circular economy. Because right now we have producers producing things that they know that's going to end up in landfill in terms of packaging, or when something reaches the end of its life, they know that there's nothing we can do with it. It's going to go in the dump, and we need to stop that. Then waste paper. There was a short study done by the CSIR on behalf of Packaging SA, which highlighted the potential economic value and the employment opportunities that could be realized through paper and cardboard recycling. So if we just used all this paper or converted more plastic packaging into paper-friendly packaging, that could create up to 700 million rand in value from the collection of the waste materials and job creation, which right now it's not. Because right now in South Africa, it's cheaper to use brand new plastic than to recycle plastic. So that's one of the major issues we have. Our proposed intervention programs, from the information that we went through above, we can clearly see that a possible issue with waste management is a lack of understanding and education about the topic. That's the main issue that we need to tackle. If the community was informed about how to recycle or what they can do to combat waste, they can play their part in helping. Local and public spaces, such as libraries, can hold informative sessions with the community about waste management. Posters can be put up around the community to constantly remind people, and even bin bags can have instructions on what households can put in it to minimize waste and to recycle. All these mediums can fall under a campaign that works at bringing awareness around the issue and to encourage people to play their part in helping. We all produce waste. You know, you can't say it's not my problem. You produce waste. If you're not doing anything to try and reduce your waste, then you are being part of the problem. I know that's quite harsh, and I'm sorry, but we're doing this. I'm doing this. It's quite hard, but we're doing this because we don't want to be a part of the problem. And we need more people to think like that, that we're not going to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. Okay, and for young people, we need to make use of our social media platforms to inform and encourage the community. We need to make recycling cool. We need to make waste management cool. You know, you need to, if you're starting a garden at home, you need to make it look cool. It's not normal, like, it's normal that you're poor or you can't, we need to make this cool. You're starting a garden, you're collecting rainwater, you're composting at home. You're one of the cool kids. So we need to push more of that. The objectives of this, the objectives of our intervention is to educate the majority of the population on the importance and the value of proper waste management, to create awareness around environmental sustainability, create awareness regarding employment opportunities available in the waste management sector, and educate youth and other interested groups about composting and community food gardens. So if anyone's interested in any of this, please join us in our discussion session later, and we will listen to what you guys are doing around the country with regards to waste management. So how are we going to do this? So the Environmental Action Group will be developing an informal document and quick reference brochure, which can be used to develop initiatives aimed at transitioning communities into circular economies. So I wanted to do this in my community, and I couldn't find a central source of information on like the basics, how to start this, what do I need? I have a group of friends, what can we do? So this brochure is going to try and help with that. I'm not going to say it's going to solve all your problems, but it's going to guide you, it's going to guide us in the right direction. It will cover the establishment of recycling, composting, and community garden initiatives. Okay. Or intervention plan. Our short-term goals is to successfully implement at least one green initiative at one school within our respective communities. So that's within the 6 of our communities. This will be used as a pilot project to determine the viability and to iron out any issues before rolling out the initiative nationally. Excuse me. Have our brochures printed and placed in public libraries across the country. That would be super cool. Our long-term goals to successfully implement several green initiatives at schools and communities around South Africa, creating jobs and helping to feed poorer households by way of community gardens. When I was younger, my granny, and I think a lot of our grandparents, we had gardens at home. We had chickens, we had geese, and that was normal. And one of the things I'd like to see this is for us to transition somewhat back to that, where we don't lose our connection to where our food comes from. We don't lose our connection to what we're doing, to this environment. We're not living in our 4 walls. What's outside is not our problem. We need to be connected. So by doing this in schools, we're showing kids that this is important and you can do it on your own. You don't just buy a tomato from the shop. You can grow it on your own, and to see something grow and to feed it with the compost that you're making, it's really an achievement. And I think it would teach a lot of the kids and young people a lot of character and patience, and that would help in long-term life as well. Oh, that's it for me. Thank you, guys. It was really nice talking to you. Can I hand over? Oh, I see someone has a hand raised. Are we taking questions now, or is it just for the discussion?
We will be taking questions later on in the breakout rooms. So...
In the breakout rooms, okay. Please keep your questions for me in the breakout rooms. Join our breakout rooms. It'll be very cool. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. I hope it was informative. If you want more information, you can hit me up. Instagram, Facebook, Dominic Naidu. You should find me. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Fatima.
Thank you so much, Dominique, for your very insightful presentation. I think we all have learned at least a little something from what you've given us today. We'd like to move on to the next group. Bamogeng, you may put the spotlight on yourself. And yeah, we are excited to see your presentation. Just a reminder, please use your interactions, the reaction button and the chat box, and you see where is facilitating the chat box. And yeah, keep engaging with us on the chat box and post on your social media platforms, tag us NYRI_SA. Yeah, on to you, Bamogeng.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, ambassadors, fellow South Africans. Thanks for this opportunity. Just gonna share the screen now. I'm looking for that presentation. All right, thanks. I think time allocated to me is only 20 minutes, and I think I'm gonna take almost 2 hours presenting this. I am Bamukeng Hube from Kuruman, Lokobate village. I'm actually presenting here on behalf of Political Group A, Lack of Economic Transformation, Reconstruction and Recovery. Our presentation will be a very short presentation, which doesn't include a lot of information. However, there will be question taken thereafter, and we'll have our introduction, problem statement, problem tree analysis, community mapping, and we shall now zoom into interventions that we came up as a group. Yeah, one would wonder, lack of economic transformation and reconstruction with low recovery. What do we mean by that? It's a very big term, which one would maybe say it's actually into a global scale. But however, this is a problem that's been experienced from a very grassroots, of which one can just say by economic transformation, this is all about broadening the opportunities for particularly previously disadvantaged group. If you could go back to the grassroots, this is where it's mostly needed, and this will actually help with increasing the employment, reducing poverty and inequality. And then this will actually result in a very good standard of living, and of course, improved education and broadening access to services. And now one would also wonder, reconstruct and transform. We've been going through a rough time, and then we really need reconstruction and the transformation in this economic, and this will entail building a sustainable and resilient inclusive economy without excluding people, maybe because of their race, their color, gender, or anything. And of course, we're talking about economy, which is a very broad thing. And in general, we've got a resource management and the production of goods and services. We've got the distribution of goods and services and the consumption of goods and services. One can say in most townships and rural villages, we actually occupy this last one where we are just consumers. You can imagine if somebody is just a consumer, but not contributing positively on the production of goods or even distributing the goods. But that person is really needed on the consumption because we are the consumers of our goods and services. And then we've got a lot of economic sectors that one could unpack, and then we're looking at energy security, infrastructure development, industrialization, agricultural activities, you name them. And specifically now, if we look into our rural villages and townships, this is where we need sectors such as agricultural activities and some of the industrialization into our townships. Now, lack of economic transformation and reconstruction with low recovery. It's just a huge and a very worrisome problem that we're experiencing. And this is because of it's caused by low economic growth. If you can check our economy in South Africa, if we check the second quarter of 2021, as you can see this graph here, just shortly before the coronavirus pandemic, our economy was sitting here and...
Can you just, your slides
Okay.
aren't moving. Can you just retry your slides, please? Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna just do them like this. All right. So I was saying, if you can check just the first quarter of 2020, just before when the coronavirus pandemic started, our economy was just growing gradually. The growth was not really good, but as you can see, our GDP was just, we were experiencing just a gradual growth, and because of the pandemic, and then we saw a very steep decline in our GDP, which was a very, very worrisome. And yeah, it went, if you check Q2 2020, this is where now our economy was 1.4% lower. And afterwards, we slowly but surely recovering from the pandemic. And this also our economy can be seen here. However, if you check Q2 2021 compared to the time when the pandemic just started, the economy hasn't recovered fully. And mainly that attribute to this is our small, medium enterprise businesses. What happened is that those who were not even sustainable, once they were affected by this pandemic, it was just done about them. They closed shops. The business were closed. And in South Africa, largely, our economy is very non-inclusive. As you can see here on our graphs, being it gender, as you can see, 36% of women were unemployed compared to 32% of men. And then generally, when we go with race, Black African women, we experience 41% of them unemployed compared to the white counterparts with 8.2%, and Indians 22.4%, and then 29.9% colored. So this really shows the unbalanced employment in our economy, and those are our economic role players. And this can also be seen when we go into age, where our young people, a majority of the leaders of tomorrow, are not actually working. And now the other huge factor here that we're experiencing is the unlimited needs and wants. So as we explained, we've got a population which they've got their needs and they've got their wants, but it's very unlimited. However, we've got very limited resources. So meaning our production is low and we've got very limited resources, which now means our resources don't meet our needs and wants. So this is where our economic problems are lying. And most importantly, we talk about rural and township economy, the barriers to entry, business entry, and access to market. That's the most important thing, which is problematic to all the startups. And the startups, they experience high cost, and the government regulations and policies, which they are very strict. And sometimes one would say it's very difficult to comply, very, very difficult unless you've got money. Coupled with corruption, even if you comply, because of corruption, sometimes they just need you to pay something in order to see yourself being 100% compliant. And then the competition and threats, one would be competing with bigger role players in the market, being from rural area and township. There are already established companies with very high EBITDA, which you would be competing directly with. And as a result, their prices would be very low. Some of them, they will even be colluding, though we've got some laws that govern the collusion of companies, and the Competition Commission can actually give them harsh penalties, but still it's happening. And then the marketing knowledge, it's also the problem of our upcoming businesses, where our young people in rural and township, they've got businesses, but the problem comes in marketing and knowledge because they are not even connected in a value chain. And there's a very huge monopoly whereby the value chain exclude such businesses, and they actually cause them natural death. So they die slowly. So the business would be started and die a slow death. And there's also challenge in technology, where now we're going into fourth industrial revolution, but now we're going to a rural area more specifically, where there is challenge with network, there is challenge with access to data, there is challenge actually with poverty in general. So even when you start a business, technology becomes a huge problem. And then the suppliers, customers, you would find that some suppliers will only be looking at their bigger role players and then only want to supply them, and the customers as well. They say a very good name, somebody has to create it. So they go with a brand that they already know. And as a new entrant to the business, then it becomes a big problem. And as well, and we go to most of these businesses are not commercialized. You will only find, for example, farming at a very small scale. Then there's no supply chain at all. Somebody has to do it for himself or herself. And there's not even a business plan where somebody can just say, no, this is where I'm expecting myself in the next 5 or 10 years, or this is my financial implications for the past 3-5 years, and this is my expectation for the upcoming 5 years. Basically, we experience poor management in most of these businesses in rural and township. And now, analyzing our problem further, we looked on using this tool called problem tree. So what happened is we've got our problem, which is the lack of economic activities and transformation with that low recovery. We identified the causes and effects. So if you check on our effects, the lack of implementation of policies, which is most important thing as we were unpacking this. If you check our government, our leaders, they've got very good policies, but most of those policies go by without being implemented. Some of them, they don't even reach the intended beneficiaries. And there's exclusion of young people as well in those, they don't benefit. And some of lack of commercialized agricultural activities because there's no value chain. And sometimes because of there's no access of information, and there's lack of green economy as well. And then lately we realized something which is actually killing our businesses is the resurgence of load shedding, which killed a lot of upcoming businesses. And of course, we've got our incompetent government officials. And this all led to intergenerational poverty. One would know that mostly we speak about intergenerational wealth. However, even poverty now is inherited, because once you start, it's so difficult to step out. And we got unemployment, high crime, and then the inequality, which is the most important and worrisome factor. Yes, of course, we did try to unpack our communities as we talk about the economic challenges and check what we have structurally, what we have the facilities to boost our local economic. And looking at our various locations, there's not much to talk about. We really lack a lot of infrastructure for industrialization, for agricultural activities. And now on interventions, luckily we have certain interventions that has been drawn for us nationally, globally. And South Africa, we're talking about National Development Plan 2030. If you go about National Development Plan 2030 and we correlate this with the problem that we're facing, the National Development Plan, it plans to address the skills gaps. There is small business support services. and then regulatory environment, and then access to debt and equity finance. If you can check, there would be maybe certain finance may be available for small enterprises, and then as well as the reduce the cost of living for poor households. Yes, it's a bit worrisome because if you check when NDP was started and now we're in 2021, almost 2022, and 2030 is still here. However, let me not say that we still have few years. Then hopefully the rural economy will be activated as well through improved infrastructure and service delivery. And then when we cast our eyes further into Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. Yes, this is the Africa we want. They also touch base on some of the economic challenges we're facing in our rural and township, and modern agriculture for increased productivity and production, just to meet our needs and wants. And then the blue ocean economy for accelerated economic growth, engaged and empowered youth and children, because we've got lack of knowledge as well. We really need that empowerment, and as well, this will lead us to a sustainable and inclusive economic growth, which is really needed, and then economic diversification and resilience, which is the important word we're using here, the resilience, because our business had to withstand either being pandemic, the challenges that are facing. And then we've got another exciting one, the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, which also intends to lower barriers to entry, to make it easier for business, the startup business to grow and to compete. Like, as I said before, it's very difficult to compete with big players in the market. And then it also planning to integrate government support for formal and informal SMEs, startups, and cooperatives, designing more and appropriate financing products for emerging farmers. And we extend it again to our Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which also plans to promote sustained and inclusive sustainable economic growth. And they also plan to build a resilient infrastructure. As I said, township and rural, the problem is the infrastructure. And integrated urban development framework as well, which also got what we call 9 levers, and then they plan to achieve the goals of economic development, guide investment that promotes integrated social and economic development. And then International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, as we all know, without finances, we cannot do anything. And then basically bring it closer to home. As ambassadors from Group A, we actually intending to come together with the various stakeholders, such as NYDA, such as in our local government, local economic development, to build up skills and develop our young people in our various communities, assist them with business plan, marketing, compliance, which is a very important part, and then identify economic sectors as well to implement the interventions. As we know, we've got various economic sectors, but there are those who are very important and needed in this time. And then we want to create that sustainable, resilient, and inclusive economy. Having said this, it means if we go back to our national frameworks, it means we can work together with government, identify where are those national frameworks, and then we bring this home, because the others also mentioned a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive economy. And as ambassadors, we say we are here. And then we want to coordinate this intervention between local and national government with grassroots level. By identifying the beneficiaries, identifying government department and other stakeholders, as I mentioned. And then we want to create partnership. Most importantly, as ambassadors, we want to be seen. We want visibility of ambassadors. So as ambassadors, we therefore need NYRI stations in order to bridge the gap that's been left between the government and rural people and township people. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our presentation, and I would like to say I thank you, Rialeboga Siyabonga and Kenza. We'll take questions when we are allowed to do that on our breaker rooms. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bamoheng, and the Political Group A team for putting this presentation together and sharing out your knowledge with us. I think it was very beneficial, and I think we can all resonate with what was said. So we are now going to move on to, before we move on, if you have any questions, please remember you can put them in the chat box, or you can keep them for later when we do go into the breakout rooms. We will now move on to the next group, which is social group A. This is also my group, so I'm very excited to introduce everyone to our intervention plan. I will also be handing over to Tato to continue on with hosting you all. And I would like to just thank you all for being such amazing guests so far. Please continue to interact and engage on the chat. Remember to follow us on our social media at NYRI_SA, and tweet us, share your stories on Instagram, comment on our Instagram and Facebook posts, and let us know how you're feeling in the chat box as well. Okay, so in order to shift over to our social group A group, I would like to call upon Zikona, who will be assisting me with the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I trust each and every one of you are good and well. My name is Zikona Mahana, and so I'm supposed to be helping Fatima, but we just experienced load shedding. Can I please just have like 2 minutes of trying to get my presentation on another device? It'll be quick. I'm just trying to have the link put on the device. Sorry about the inconvenience. It's load shedding.
No problem, Zikona. I think while we're waiting, let's get a little bit of a engagement with the room. Let us know how you're feeling. Yeah, and any key insights that you picked up from the last two presentations, any questions you may have, please leave them in the chat box as well. But for now, maybe we can just see how everyone is doing. So let us know in the chat box using emojis. Maybe 4 emojis. Tell us how you are feeling today. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Dominique says, thank you all for listening to my rambling. And Damvisa is a excited face, a cool face, a sweetie face. I don't know what the sweetie face means. And an in-love face. Lungisile is winking at us. She's sending fire, smiling with her tongue. I'm loving this interaction. Rhonda, welcome to the session. Yes, we are. Currently, we are waiting for Zikona to just get her devices set up so that she can start the presentation. Yeah, so just let us know how you're feeling in the chat box. Yeah, using 4 emojis. Some comments. Lungisile says, for me, there's more we need to learn about our environment. Sanelisi, we asked, is NYRI on LinkedIn? Yes, we are on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can find us just by typing National Youth Resilience Initiative into the search bar. Dambisa is feeling inspired by the high-level presentations. Yeah, let us know. Sanali Siwe is also on controlling our chat box. She's been doing such an amazing job. Thank you so much. You can find a link to all the socials in the chat box as well. So please go and have a look, go and have a follow, interact with us on our social media, share our posts. Please remind people to register for tomorrow's, for our dialogue tomorrow, the continuation. NYD Day 2 is happening tomorrow. It's going to be very exciting. Yeah.
I'm almost done, Fatima.
No problem. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, please let us know what your thoughts were on the past two presentations that just took place. I'd really like to know what your thoughts are. We'll keep it away from questions, just comments. We'd like to keep the questions for the breakout rooms. Yeah, let us know in the chat box. I will read them out now while we're waiting. Just to clarify, our live stream is not taking place currently. We did meet some issues and obstacles regarding the live stream, but our team is working on it. Hopefully we'll be able to have a full live stream for tomorrow. Once we get it running for today, we will let you know. So thank you so much. Don't forget to tweet, post, and share about the dialogue on all social media platforms. Domain says very insightful presentations, lots of food for thought. I definitely agree. There was a lot of insightful information. Waste Activate says bringing waste into mainstream awareness for action is critical. To see the ambassadors implement the pilot project and scale this will be an interesting process to start the change. Yes, yes, it will. I think that was Mike. Thanks, Mike. A question from Lungisile: will the dialogue recording be shared with those who registered and for some reason could not attend? That's a very good question. We will try and get the maybe Mona or Nalvia could answer that question. Amina Mohammed says, interesting to know the ripple effect that load shedding has on the people within the country and how it impacts the economy. There are so many positive possibilities to prevent waste. Like it was said, access to knowledge is truly a key that opens up many doors for opportunity.
I'm ready.
All right, let's begin our social A group presentation. I'm just going to share screen. All right. I just like to take this opportunity to greet everyone once again. Sorry about that. I just like to, take this opportunity to greet everyone once again. I am Fatima Hussein. I am an ambassador of the Western Cape of the National Youth Resilience. initiative, and I am from Social Group A, where we focused on COVID-19 lockdown and women, specifically the effects the pandemic's lockdown strategy has had on women's mental and sexual reproductive health. I'm going to hand over to Zikona now, who is going to just delve into our presentation a little bit further.
Thank you, Fatima. Good afternoon, ambassadors again. Sorry for the delay. I think next time we should put load shedding in one of our topics because it seems to be a serious challenge. So diving right into it without wasting any further time, like Fatima said, as Social Group A, we are dealing with women and mental health. So women have very little access to mental health and sexual reproductive health resources, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, since the pandemic began, as a country, we have experienced immense loss in resources and morale as we try our best in curbing the spread of the coronavirus outbreak. With this being the focal point of most governments across the world, including South Africa, we have seen a loss in resources, in life, and in freedom of movement. And some of these losses are highlighted in our slide. If you can look, they include governmental budget cuts, sudden retrenchments, loss of life, loss of freedom of movement, obstruction in import and export flow, social interaction, and etc. But for us as the Social Group A highlighted loss was women's access to mental and reproductive health resources. This includes contraception, contact with professionals, and increased financial restraint. So basically, these are some of the negative effects that we have seen women experience in the time of the COVID-19 outbreak or during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this has taken a lot of toll in women. Already, South Africa has a crisis when it comes to sexual reproductive rights and access to health services. So the COVID-19 pandemic has only worsened this. So now we are moving down to our problem tree. And for those of you who've attended some of the sessions we've had, you have seen how using a problem tree to break down your problem just helps you understand the depth of the problem. So there's been an increased substance abuse as a result of a lack of access to the resources during the COVID-19 pandemic or the lockdown. We have seen an increased violence. This is GBV and suicide, even an increased young people getting in gangs. So this is as a result of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lack of access to these resources. We have seen a very big increase in mental related health issues. And also we have seen an increase in a decrease in economic health. We know that our economy has suffered a lot as a country as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which only makes sense. Why is it that even GBV has increased? Because everyone is stressed out. And if a man who seemingly should, or who according to society should provide, and he's unable to do it, so at the moment, women are at the receiving end of that frustration and violence. We have seen COVID-19 related illnesses being prioritized, which means that our government and any intervention that they've been doing has been solely focused so much on COVID that other issues like mental health and women's rights have been neglected. So women are not getting the help they need for their reproductive and their mental health. women are leading households. There are reduced job opportunities for women. There are reduced medical resources and capacity, and this is obviously due to COVID-19. There is a lack of transport to get to facilities and health clinics, and a lot of people have a lot of anxiety and fear of illness and getting sick. There's a financial restraint. A lot of people have been retrenched, and also like reduced productivity. And obviously, this is also because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So our problem tree here further highlights the causes and the effects of this problem that we have identified. So right now, I will hand over to Fatima, who will delve into some research that we have done in order to further back up our statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Zikona. So to further delve into this topic, I think that we should just go back to this is some research that we have done regarding the issue of access to sexual reproductive health resources and mental health resources. So some key insights we found was from the National Income Dynamics Study, Coronavirus Rapid Mobile Survey, Wave 1. This data set found out of the total of 5,304 candidates, 22% did not receive access to condoms, despite 7 out of 10 South Africans preferring them. Yeah, so in our research, an eye-opening realization was that during initial hard lockdown that began in March 2020, sexual reproductive health resources were not prioritized, which caused a ripple effect in the access women have to further resources. Of course, aside from pregnancy, there are many other risks involved in sexual relations, which impact social issues at its core, such as the spread of HIV, other STDs, and as well as mental health. These raised a few questions, such as, in the case of an unplanned pregnancy, would women have access to necessary resources for a safe termination of pregnancy? What about women who are struggling with premenstrual symptoms, such as cramps, iron deficiency, etc.? Would they have access to the appropriate medication and relief products during this difficult time? If you look at my slides, you'll be able to see some studies done on the access women had to contraceptives and other medication revolving around their sexual reproductive health. Moving on, to contextualize our problem statement, we did do a study, so we took the initiative to pose the question to women in our respective communities, and we asked about the current experiences with mental and sexual reproductive health during lockdown. Our findings. Okay, so our key insights we looked into were women between the ages of 18 and 40, whether or not they have a general understanding of mental and reproductive health, the ability to recognize anxiety, depression, and emotions, the current need for access to resources, and usage of reproductive and mental health resources that are available. We managed to ask 125 candidates, and 121 of which were women that fit into our demographic. Right, so again, just to reiterate, within our appropriate respondents, we found that within any intervention we plan to do when creating awareness on the issue, we can delve deeper than surface level into the topic of mental health. This was surprising for us, as we thought that we would have to create a lot more awareness around the topic. But there is a general understanding. However, what we did find was some women do struggle to distinguish between natural emotions such as sadness, happiness, nervousness, and actual mental disorders. So anxiety disorder, depression, all of those sort of extreme forms of emotion. Women struggle to identify those accurately. We confirmed that there was a negative change in mood overall since lockdown, and when women experience their menstrual period. So you may wonder, why combine sexual reproductive health and mental health? According to our research, we have found that there is a strong link between your sexual reproductive health and your mental health. Hence, when broaching the subject, we cannot isolate each issue as they are so closely linked. To put it simply, if your sexual reproductive health is not good, your mental health will be affected, and vice versa. Just going back to my previous slide. Sorry, just going back to my previous slide. This is just some information we received through some research outside of our survey on how closely linked sexual reproductive health and mental health are. So moving on, to further provide context to our problem statement, we explored our respondents' access to SRHR, where we found the following. And so 62% of our candidates were sexually active, and 94% of them experienced a menstrual period. Only 54% of our candidates, of our respondents, keep track of their full cycle. 26% have their regular tests for HIV, STDs, breast cancer, HPV, vaccinations, etc. done. So that's a very, very low percentage of women, according to our percentage of candidates who are sexually active. Only 17.6% of our respondents have seen a professional regarding their reproductive health in the last 90 days. That is equally as concerning. 34% have never seen a professional regarding their reproductive health. So there's some pretty scary percentages and numbers happening within our survey of women not going to see a professional regarding their sexual reproductive health. We also found that women theoretically have access to these resources, but cannot practically access them based off of stigma, fear of the pandemic, financial restraints, as well as other environmental factors like transport. Yeah, so moving on, I'd just like to highlight some of the key comments that came out of our survey. So someone said that it's impossible to obtain quality mental health services, both due to affordability and stigma. Due to the pandemic, I've delayed health-seeking behavior. I waited until I was fully vaccinated to go for my annual reproductive health checkup. I will not access mental health services physically. I would prefer a virtual option. Another comment that sat very vividly with me was, I'm unmarried and too afraid to broach this topic with my parents. My parents can afford it somewhat, but I can't access it due to my anxiety surrounding telling them I need help. and knowing that they won't understand from prior experience. So this again just reiterates the fact that women aren't getting what they need in terms of their mental and sexual reproductive health treatments and resources. And it may not be because there aren't the resources available, but do women actually have access to those resources? That is the question that we are constantly asking. And from our study, what we have found is that stigma and fear are the two biggest obstacles that women face when trying to get access to these resources. We'll move back to Zikona, who will continue on with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatima. I think leaders, you can tell just from the presentation that Fatima made that we put a lot of effort into getting factual information that would be relevant and appropriate towards what we are trying to address. And if you can just look at our intervention plan, we continue with the same mind. So we have decided to break down our intervention plan into different phases, and it has 4 phases. The first one is for us to research, which is something that we've already started with, and engage with relevant stakeholders and partners. So it is very, very vital for us to engage with professionals and NGOs and anyone who's already involved in this field, in this platform, and in the topic that we are trying to address, and get a professional perspective from their side. So that would be us approaching nurses, clinics, and so on, etc. And then phase 2 would be for us to evaluate the research findings and work alongside relevant professionals to decide on appropriate strategies. Sorry, excuse me for a minute. Sorry for that. It's called working from home. Sorry for that. So yes, phase 2 would be for us to evaluate research findings and work alongside relevant professionals to decide on appropriate strategies according to the results. So whatever strategy and solution we are going to be implementing, we want it to be informed by the research and the results we got from the professionals, from other stakeholders. We think this would be more effective and impactful. And phase 3 obviously would be for us to now sort of pilot our intervention and see how that goes. So this would be us implementing whatever it is we have consolidated. Part of phase 2 is for us to consolidate every data that we gathered and information that we gathered and put it into an action plan. Now, phase 3 is us implementing our action plan that is based on the research that we did. And then phase 4 entails the evaluation of the end results. So we obviously are going to go into phase 3, which is the implementation, with a target, with expected outcomes. So in order for us to be able to know how impactful we are and know if we have reached our goal or our targeted goal, then we would have to make sure that we evaluate what we have done. There is a monitoring system, there is a reporting system, there is a manner in which we can assess our impact. So yeah, I think that is clear. We can move on to the next slide. Thank you very much. So when considering an intervention plan, it is vital for us to take the pandemic, it is vital for us to take pandemic suitable strategies into account. This is of utmost importance. The following strategies were proposed to assist in combating the problems behind access to women's mental and reproductive health. So COVID-19, we all know, has changed the world drastically. It has changed how we do things dramatically. So anything that we're going to be planning, any program, any intervention, we need to be considerate of how we do things in the context of COVID-19. So number one in our proposed intervention programs is a webinar. And this is a platform that is very much being used right now to have a dialogue and just to be in conversation about critical or important topics in the context of COVID-19. So this is a very good platform. And then we would, number two, have a program like lay counseling training, which I think is very vital as well. Number three, to create safe and affordable space for women to access these services. And we want to do these things at a micro level, just so that we can see. Remember, we are still on a trial phase. We are not sure yet if this works. We're still just trying and see how it will come out and then evaluate from there. So we want to create a safe space and a safe and affordable space for women to access these services. Number four, buddy systems and peer-to-peer support through online platforms. And we already know that departments like the Department of Health already have an online platform called Moja or Mobi. Yes, it's Mobi, where young people can go online and learn about their sexual reproductive health and their rights as well, their sexual reproductive rights, condomizing, and so on. So we can capitalize on such systems to ensure that there is support. Number five, prioritize factually accurate sexual reproductive education, as well as EQ and mental health illness. So there are a lot of myths and incorrect information. In fact, there's a lot of incorrect information with regards to this topic, especially mental health, especially sexual reproductive health. So we need to put out the information that is factual and that is correct with regards to these topics. And number six, working with existing organizations on their mental and reproductive health initiatives. I mean, what better way than to partner with someone who's already walked this walk and, you know, talk the talk and walk the walk. So it is very vital for us to not want to just be, you know, people who do things by themselves, but there's a lot of power in collaboration. So we can do that because we'll be working with people who are already acquainted with these topics and the work, and we can learn something from them. Yes. So with our intervention strategy, it is essential for us to reach as many women as possible. However, during the pandemic, contact is limited. So our strategy tries to access people using the virtual world, which has proven to be useful and effective over the last year in connecting the NYRI network. Yes, so I think we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, thank you very much. So how can stakeholders get involved and assist in our intervention strategy? So if you are here, you're listening to us and you're already sold to our presentation, this is where you zoom in and listen in even more so that you know how you can come in and assist. So supporting our intervention strategy looks like this. You can provide access to professional, academic, research to solidify our project. So as you can see, as Social A Group, we are very serious about having facts and having done our research. That is number one, because we don't want to be going around solving problems that don't exist. We want to be sure what exactly is the problem, and we don't want to implement strategies that won't work. So providing access to professional academic research to solidify our project. And then we can also assist with funding for training initiatives, projects, project resources, etc. There's a lot of training, honestly, that is going to be needed for this topic, a lot of it. And funding, obviously, everything that we are doing is going to need resources from A to Z. So that is how you can partner. That is how a stakeholder can partner with us. Platforms to host our proposed programs, sponsorship to access medical services and professionals. This is also important. It forms part of resources, because without the resources, the work cannot be done. And then links to organizations across the country. So if we have links to other organizations, already we are reaching a larger target, a larger or a bigger target group, you know, because if there's an existing organization in Limpopo and we partner with them, we don't have to get there and do the groundwork of having, you know, to start from zero. We can already partner with them. They have the people, they know the area, they know the stakeholders, and they can connect us there. And if you're in the KZN and you're already an existing organization that is implementing these services or tackling women's sexual reproductive health rights, including their mental health, then we partner with you. We can work and be able to you know, cover large areas. I think we can move on to the next slide.
All right, thank you so much, Zikona. And thank you all for listening to our presentation. If you do have any questions, we have noted your inputs in the chat. And I've seen some really great engagements on the chat box, which I will be touching base with later on. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We will take further questions and comments in the breakout rooms. I'll now hand over to Tato, who will take you further within the dialogue.
Thank you so much, Fatima, and thank you so much, Zikona. That presentation was really comprehensive. And I think if there's anything that I am taking away from that, is that if there's anything that COVID has done, it is to just magnify the issues that young women and girls are facing in relation to reproductive health and mental health. So thank you so much for that. And I really do hope that you are ready, because I know this is one of the topics that a lot of people are really interested in. So without wasting any further time, I just want to let everyone know that we'll be going into our breakaway rooms, where we'll be having an opportunity to engage further on the different presentations that have been shared by the different groups. We're going to have three breakaway rooms, one that will focus on the environment presentation, the political presentation, and the social presentation. Each breakaway room is assigned a facilitator to help us facilitate that process. So I will just request that, Brian, can you kindly put us into our different breakaway rooms? Okay, so if you look below, okay, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, Tato. Hi, guys. Name is Brian. So I have created the rooms, and just because that everyone who had RSVP to be here is not here, so the list is a little bit messed up. So I have created the rooms with the names of the rooms. So we have social, we have political, and we have environment. So please jump onto your room, the room that you had RSVP'd and you had selected. The rooms are open. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brian. So can you start joining the different breakaway rooms? There's an icon below on your screen that's written breakout rooms. So click on the one that speaks to your heart.
So just a refresher, if you're still in the plenary room, you need to join one of the groups by hitting the join icon next to its name. Dambisa, which group are you wanting to go to, or are you wanting to? Because it seems like if we assign, it helps.
Sure. The political group, please.
Political.
Thanks. Mike?
Sharon? Yeah?
Oh, somehow, oh, 1 second. Okay, joining.
Okay. Sharon, which group can I assign you to? Sharon, which group are you wanting to be assigned to, please?
Mike, if maybe, guys, if you could please maybe write on the chat box as well, as we go on the list. You could just write on the chat box which group would you like for us to assign you to.
Mike, Sharon is in social B. I'm not sure if maybe she's interested in.
Okay, she's gone now. All right, I think it's just the team left in here. Russ, I assigned Russ to his group, but he's still in here. Ntabisang, can you hear us? Interesting, because it's not showing them as unassigned, and yet they still seem to be showing as icons.
Sometimes I really feel like nothing. All I'm trying to is pay your bills. Stress some season my dog. It's why I'm melting. I'm very too young for the high heart. I'm working too hard trying to be a star. Who cares? Namaz mawkwish uyazi nawe lufonela umfana. Who cares? Namaz mawkwish uyazi nawe lufonela umfana. Konobele nkoki impahla zami. Kazi ngiyothini kwabazali. Singashona, 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 babu anjale sena yosebenza uloliwe. Umama uhlala ekhaya ekade ingane maya kasebenze. Mina ngikhathele indlala, ululozama nami yami. Mina ngikhathele indlala, ululozama nami.
Site, which was basically a mountain, basically slid down and killed 100 people in the community. More than 100 people in Indonesia were killed by waste, a mountain of waste. In India, this week, I think it was Monday, Tuesday, the governments closed all the schools, put the country in lockdown, specifically in New Delhi, because the air pollution was so high that they couldn't risk people being outside. The streets were empty. Now, if you know India, the streets are never empty. But this week, on Monday, they had to shut the country down because the air pollution levels were so high. Kids couldn't go to school, people couldn't go to work. And that's a direct consequence of waste and pollution in our ecosystems. But there's hope because there are countries that does brilliantly in terms of like waste management. Just as an example, Germany recycles 56% of the waste that they produce. 56%, that's huge. Literally takes half of the waste out of their landfill sites. So there is hope. There's a call to action, and we can do it together with small projects, localized projects, awareness raising, education, and action, and really advocacy for you to advocate for your clean environment, because it's your environmental, it's a right that you have as a human being. Your right to a healthy environment should not be compromised by someone else's greed, because his right or her right or their right cannot trump yours for a clean environment. So that's just kind of like a setting of the scene. And I want you guys to use the chat box to share stories of waste, whether it's waste management, whether it's a problem with waste or a solution in the chat box. But now I'm going to give over to Jacob, that's going to share a little bit about the waste framework in South Africa, but also share a little bit about COP26, what came out of COP26 and how we can basically use that as leverage to basically assert our rights as human beings in South Africa for a clean environment. Jacob, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. I just hope that I'm audible enough that side.
You're good.
Basically, as Cindy have indicated, I'll be speaking about the waste management framework in South Africa, and I'll focus on the outcomes of COP26. Therefore, as we all know, as envisaged in the Constitution, Section 24 of the Bill of Rights provides that everyone has a right to an environment that is not harmful to their right, to their health, harmful to their well-being, and to have the environment protected for the benefits of the current and the future generation. Therefore, to give effect to Section 24, the National Environmental Management Act was enacted. Under the National Environmental Management Act, furthermore, National Environmental Management Waste Act was enacted. Then within the Waste Act itself, we have a national waste management strategy. A national waste management strategy focuses on and promotes recycling, reuse of waste as secondary source, thereby ensuring that the waste streams are being diverted from landfill site. The strategy has ensured that sustainable resource use is being.
Guys, not sure you started recording. We don't need to record now.
Here in the province, it was dubbed the Women Enterprise Development Program. Here we were trying to push compliance towards young people that have businesses and also open up procurement opportunities within the public sector, which is your LED units and supply chain, and also push them to be compliant, to be competitive in the private sector. But however, the program did continue with SALGA, but we failed to get the necessary support from our provincial government and some of our district and local municipalities. So if ambassadors can be able to be placed in those grassroots areas, your districts or the province, so that these issues get to be addressed quickly, because the other missing link is people not understanding the two between poly-economics. So that's what we were trying to do from the chamber side, to show young people the value of them existing, why they should vote, what is a district, what is procurement, what is compliant. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mokene. That's yeah, some great points, and I've made some notes because I want to come back to some of the things you raised. There's a question from Abdulatif in the chat box, and they're saying they'd like to know how the group will tackle the incompetent government officials to have youth up to date on the opportunities available that will better change jobs, etc. Is there somebody from the group who wants to volunteer to answer that question? What is your response for incompetent government officials?
Yes, hello.
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, afternoon. Yeah, as ambassadors, and as we availed ourselves, and as we're ready to work, what happens is it's a well-known truth that we've got incompetent government officials, and it's well known that if ever you strategically or challenge someone, it becomes uglier. It doesn't sit well with them. However, us as ambassadors, we tend to work together. We aiming to create a relationship with government officials. If we go into our community mapping, this is where we also had to identify some of our government officials to say which one can assist us where, and then we start collaborating with them, create that relationship. Hence, we wanted to use that NYRI as a symbol, that will connect us with various stakeholders and work with all those various stakeholders. Thank you.
Unfortunately, sacrifices was in women's health and sexual reproductive health. A common thing that we found, there was an issue specifically in the early stages of lockdown. Sexual relations wasn't taken into account as a priority. And so what that led to was that there wasn't enough access to things like condoms. This was a very strong outcome that had a very strong outcome, which did lead to an increase in unplanned pregnancies. And so with that being said, that's where we see, that's where we could notice where the funding was going to and where it needed to actually be going to. Yeah, Nungisire, would you like to take the rest of the question?
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much for those questions. Very important questions. I'll dive straight into the stigma. As a Black person, I'll speak for myself and also other Black people, that mental health is something that is I think it's beyond just being a taboo. It's deeper than that. It's something that we feel it does not exist. So there's a strong stigma around it, and that was shared in our survey. You know, women of all ages, and also with younger women, of course, with the level of awareness and knowledge and access either to the internet, or if you go to university or college, maybe there is a department that you can visit just to get more knowledge, but there's still a high level of stigma, and mental health is stigmatized because of lack of knowledge, right? So you find that a person will easily say, I'm depressed, but they don't understand what that means. You know, just because maybe I'm sad, I'm having a bad day, of which all of us do have. But when I have to dig deeper into why I'm actually sad, then it becomes a taboo. Things like you are cursed, things like you are a failure, you brought this upon yourself. Those things play into the stigma around mental health. So that was also highlighted in our survey. And also to speak on the issue of funding. So we interacted with someone from the department, which was quite amazing, you know, because they shared so much insight in terms of how sexual reproductive health was not prioritized, and we all saw that. And as much as our emotions and our level of vulnerability was heightened during extreme lockdown, we all just put aside our emotions. We all put aside our other needs, and we focused on the pandemic. And moving forward, that is something that we have learned that it is definitely going to have long-term impact, right? So we might not see the manifestation of what hardcore lockdown did on women's mental health right now. There might not be enough stats or data available, more especially here in South Africa, or even in Africa. But we also think moving forward, maybe 2 years from now, because also the plan is not just to do this intervention next month and we're done, we continue our lives, but also want to look at long-term impact, because we've seen with also other forms of disasters, how that can do to someone's psychological need, you know? So in terms of funding, and we know there was a lot of corruption, which is something that we're not, you know, it's not a new concept in South Africa, but yeah.
Produce. Leaders from 100 countries have agreed. I'm talking about 100 countries which have close to 75% of the world forest have agreed and promised to stop deforestation by 2030. And this is seen as vital, as trees absorb a vast amount of CO2, as I've said. Therefore, in terms of methane is another greenhouse gases that, of course, contribute to climate change. Cut off 30% of methane emission by 2030 was agreed by more than 100 countries. Methane is currently responsible for 1/3 of human-generated waste. Therefore, as Dominic have alluded on the presentation, to say methane is released when food decomposes. Therefore, by cutting off methane, by cutting off methane, it means that these countries are going to develop more and more projects that focuses on recycling and decomposing and composting of their food to ensure that perhaps they cut down on methane. Then the last thing about COP26, financial organizations controlling 130 trillion agreed to back clean energy. As I've said, I've spoken about the fund that is going to be developed after this agreement. Therefore, we will see at Egypt next year during COP27 to say how far are these countries, what progress have they made in terms of the agreement that they've reached? Because previously, if you can remember, the developed countries previously on COP25, they've agreed to pledge more funds, of which that never happened. Therefore, we just hope that this time around it will actually be possible. Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, some really good points in terms of like a macro view of the waste framework, not just in South Africa, but the rest of the world, and where waste essentially like fits in. So then looking at the interventions that you and Dominic have basically like prepared as part of your group presentation with your other group members, it'll be interesting to like hear. So Boutle basically like put two of the main reasons why she thinks that waste is an issue, her understanding of waste in the chat. But I think that the problem tree that Dominic basically presented gives a very, really nice understanding of like the flow of that particular problem and the actual problem, and then the consequences that are created through that specific issue, which is waste management. So just in terms of in your community, we've gotten a few examples of what are the root causes in or in leading to an uncoordinated waste management approach. What are the kind of issues in your community that basically lead to that? Boutle, if you want to share some of your experiences that you've shared on the group.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
The question that you asked was just behind how do I understand waste in my community.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a township whereby people are not exposed to knowledge about the dangers and the effects that the waste has on the environment. Mm-hmm. I believe that it is not for us to blame them, but it's for us to blame the government that they're not exposed to such knowledge about how much danger it can put into the environment. And if I can just label it in terms of waste, I can say, what is waste? It's all about recklessness of disposal. If you do not know where you're putting this and how is this going to impact the environment, it all goes back to the term of people living in a township, not just everyone in the township, people in my community are not